everybody. So I've already done a video on muscle twitching and fear of ALS, but I just wanted to do another one because that video that I put up has had the most response and it seems to be the one thing that people are most concerned about. So I just wanted to list a few reasons why you probably don't have ALS, because I've done a lot of research on it, and by no means am I an expert and by no means am I a doctor, but I just wanted to share with you what I have found and what I have discovered that has helped me sort of put my fears of ALS to rest. So firstly, if your only symptoms are muscle twitching, you really shouldn't be concerned of ALS. Now, this is the only symptom that I had. I was having, I still have muscle twitching all over my body. And muscle twitching all over your body is by no means enough of a reason to, get an EMG or to be referred to a neurologist or anything like that, because it's very common in people who have anxiety. If you haven't already, look up something called benign fasciculation syndrome. It is basically a disorder where your muscles will just twitch, and it's usually from long-term anxiety, or you can get it after certain viruses. So there's a lot of information online about that, and that really, really helped me as well. Also, I want to say, if your twitching is all over your body, it's very, very unlikely to be ALS. The twitching that happens with ALS happens after the weakness. So usually a limb will stop working, or you won't be able to say, lift your arm over your head, or you'll struggle holding a cup, or you might keep tripping over one foot, and that is clinical muscle weakness. So then some people who have the muscle weakness will start getting twitching, and the reason why the muscle is twitching is because it is starting to atrophy, and atrophy basically means the muscle is wasting away. So if you notice the twitching first and you haven't had any muscle weakness, there is basically slim to none chance it's ALS. And also, like I said, the twitching with anxiety and benign fasciculation syndrome is most likely going to be in a few areas of the body or all over the body. Now, ALS doesn't work that way. It's not going to be all over, because with ALS you might have, say, weakness in your hand, and then you get twitching in your hand, and then slowly that will obviously spread, and that's why people end up obviously in a wheelchair and completely deteriorating, because it basically attacks everything in the end. So I just want to reassure you that if you have muscle twitching that is in more than one area of your body or all over your body, and you have no muscle weakness, you're not going to have ALS. Number 2 is atrophy. That is another symptom of ALS. Atrophy is muscle wasting. Now, here's where it gets tricky. When you look online and you read about muscle atrophy, and especially if you're like me, you start going into all the forums and you look at pictures. Initially with ALS, the muscle atrophy isn't too alarming. So this is the mistake I made, is that I started to look at my hands. I started to feel like I had dents in my hands. I was looking at all these little lines and thinking that it was atrophy. But I'm also a very, very thin person. I don't really have a lot of meat on me, and everybody has dents. Everybody has the odd line and weird things. So I feel that with ALS, the muscle atrophy will eventually be very, very obvious. It's not gonna just be the odd little line in your hand. It's going to be very prominent in the end, and along with that you're going to have the muscle weakness and the other symptoms as well. So the other thing that I wanted to say as well is the difference between feeling weak and actual clinical weakness. So a lot of people who have fears about ALS, they'll say things like, I'm feeling like my arm is weak. It doesn't work like that with ALS. It's not a sensation of feeling weak. It is actual clinical weakness that can be actually measured. So people with ALS, a lot of the time it affects their hands first, so they may not be able to hold a cup properly. They may be dropping things all the time. They might not be able to lift their arm above their head, and eventually that will progressively get worse, and then it'll go down their arm and it'll affect you know, everything in their body. So when I had my fears of ALS and I was getting the twitching, I started to feel like my arms were weak. I was, you know, holding a cup and I was feeling like my hands were shaking, that I couldn't hold it properly. I felt like my legs were like jelly all the time. I was feeling like I was having all of these weird sensations. And of course, I was utterly convinced I had ALS because I was thinking, right, I've got the twitching, I've got this feeling of being weak, and I've got these weird dents, you know, in my hands that I think is atrophy, and it was just a downward spiral from there. So yeah, I just again want to reiterate, it's not a sensation of feeling weak, it is actually not being able to do something. And it's quite obvious, you know, it'll be picked up by your loved ones, it's gonna progressively get worse. Another thing that I found really helpful online is for every day you can still use all of your limbs and you are fine, you should put a little tick or a cross on your calendar. And if a month goes by and nothing has changed, you should be totally reassured that you don't have ALS. ALS is, you know, it's an aggressive disease, typically happens very, very fast. You know, most people will start to get the symptoms and within 6 months they, you know, are usually within a, you know, in a wheelchair, or they really, really need help with their day-to-day activities. So yeah, just keep a little diary, have a little tick every day, and that should reassure you that you're absolutely fine. Also, I want to say that ALS is very, very rare. I feel like when you read online about muscle twitching, it seems like ALS is such a common thing, but it's really, really not. Especially if you are under your 50s, like the chances are even lower. I'm 26 and I can... Sorry, the dog's about to bark. I'm 26 and I convinced myself that I had ALS. The chances of a 26-year-old having ALS are, you know, you're more likely to, I think I read somewhere, you're more likely to get hit by a car and die than have ALS. So it's really, really rare. And yeah, please, 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 if you are somebody that's having muscle twitching and you've convinced yourself that you have ALS, look up benign fasciculation syndrome. I know that a lot of people fear ALS because it's sort of that one thing that we're all scared of. I find that within the health anxiety community, it's the top 3 are usually fear of cancer, fear of something wrong with the heart, like chest pain and stuff, and ALS. So I just really want you guys to know that I 100% know how it feels to be scared of ALS. It's a very scary thing when you start getting muscle twitching. It's very scary when you start to look at your body and you feel like, you know, you've got atrophy, and it's scary when you start feeling weak. It's not a fun thing, but please be reassured that, you know, your chances are very, very slim. And I know that doesn't usually help a lot of people. It never really helped me when people would say, you know, it's a 1 in a million chance, but I always thought that I'd be that 1 in a million. But I hope that this video was helpful in some way. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you want to see some more videos. And I will catch you guys on my next video.